Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5. And if I am not mistaken, episode number 758, I hope, of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. There we go. Let's show that little make-believe there. Today recording day is Friday. It's Friday. Everybody, it's Friday. October 10th. Already double digits in the month. It's going by so fast. 2025. And it is a cool, crisp morning here at the Beaver Lodge. Yesterday and today, I think we had some frost warnings, the first ones of the season. So it's a little nippy. We went from really ridiculously hot to frost in a very, very short period of time this year. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, he, Mr. Beaver A, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Apologies for the late start this morning, kids and cubs. Yesterday was a curling night, and therefore got to bed a little later than usual, and have to get used to when that happens, having shorter nights before coming on to the show the next day, and having a little tiny bit of tech trouble this morning, but hopefully it is all resolved and it will not affect the show. So far, things are going smoothly, so we are going to cross our fingers or cross our paws that it will remain so for the rest of our time together today. Kids and cubs, how is your mental health doing today? I have to say I am doing well, especially considering that the very little sleep. Actually, it's little sleep over the last 2 days because for some reason, even though I didn't need to necessarily wake up early yesterday, because we had a pre-record the night before, I was so exhausted from the other days, having not gotten enough sleep that I actually fell asleep early, but which meant I woke up early around 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was up for the day. So by the time I got to bed yesterday, rather than just being up the 16 of the 24 hours, I had been up close to 21 or 22. So maybe that has something to do with the fact that we lost both our curling matches yesterday. Yes, unfortunately, the Eager Beaver Lodge curling report. Nothing very exciting to say. I played okay, I think. I made a couple of nice shots, but I was unfortunately not consistent enough. And we played two teams who didn't miss a damn thing. And I still do not understand how you cannot play curling for 3 or 4 months and then step on ice, brand new ice, freshly made, different than the ice you played on last year or the last time you played, and pretty much not miss a shot. the whole team, both of them. So yeah, we definitely had fates stacked against us, but they were blowouts. I think we didn't score a single point in the first match, and the second one we only managed to score one. We were in it all the time, but they had all the answers, all the answers. So I mean, the scoreboard didn't reflect the play, but the quality of the play. But yeah, we were easily handled. Let's put it that way. uh, but no, mental health doing well. Some the little renovation project is going well. We're staining the back deck, and the front porch had never been stained at all, at all, at all. So some prep work and all that type of stuff, and the garage as well. We have a wooden frame to the door of the garage, and the peel had been painting there. And since there was other places paint had been peeling, and we were scraping it, we decided to take care of that too. So a couple of little projects. The first coat on the back deck is of stain is put on, and it looks awesome. So hopefully, we're going to get some warm weather today and the next days. Because they say that you shouldn't be putting on the stain when the temperature is below a certain amount, or else it could potentially flake or something. So we did put it on when it was warm enough, but of course, because it got cool, we were afraid that that might happen in something not so nice might happen in the drying phase. But it seems that everything has indeed gone well so far. So second coats today. Will be warmer days today and tomorrow, and hopefully we can finish the project before our guests arrive. And maybe even have the ability to sit on the deck because we have family coming over for Thanksgiving. And to be totally honest, kids and cubs, I have no idea how we're going to pull this off because both of us are exhausted. And I think we have 8 people coming, so we'll be 10 in all. Hopefully, 8 or 6, maybe, 6 people coming, and we'll be 8 in all. Um, and we haven't even had time to think about what it is we're making. So we have to figure that out today and clean the place up to make it suitable for guests, and then go buy the food and then have everything here. And it's going to be a very, very, and still try to supervise the project and finish it. So it's going to be a fairly busy couple of days, and somewhere in there tomorrow. My time is cut because I will have rehearsal 12 to 4. So my Beaver Sweetie is going to be alone preparing in the final hours for our guests to arrive. So it's yeah, basically as soon as the show is over, it's straight to work, and it's going to be work pretty much all day long and all morning long tomorrow until the guests arrive, because we haven't uh, like I said, there's enough to do, especially with what we're doing with the renovations. We had anything that we had on the deck is now on the back lawn, and just sort of spread out wherever we could fit stuff. Because we were hoping to have it back installed on the back deck by the time guests arrive, so that we can enjoy it. So yeah, there will be a lot to do, and then of course all the typical things. You want to have fresh sheets for your guests and all that kind of stuff. So you don't want to, and you want to give your guests the luxury of freshly laundered linens, because those always feel good when you slip into them at the end of the day. So have a lot on our lists, and hopefully we will be able to tick it all off. And I hope if you have some Thanksgiving plans with family coming, if you're in Canada, if you're in the States, this will be your Columbus Day, is our Thanksgiving Day. But if you are in Canada, hopefully you have either you are going somewhere or you have people coming over, but there will be love and family, either biological or chosen, laughter, and all that good stuff. And of course, too much damn food. Hopefully, all of it good to savor. So, and happy memories being made. All right, let's see who we have in the chat with us. Yes, indeed. Sticky deck, as Kid Christian says, that's the thing that we are worried about. We want to make sure that everything is completely dry before we put things on it and ruin the good job, because so far the job is looking really, really, really nice. So we don't want to ruin it. Uh, And oh yes, and some news here from the DAMFAM. Kit Sharon has got possession of her house yesterday and is definitely very busy. So sending good vibes to you, Kit Sharon, when you finally hear this, so that your house is very warm and welcoming, and that there are nothing but good spirits in it for you to make beautiful, happy memories there for a long time to come. Okay. Yeah, Kitland, I'm done with holidays that were nothing but work. I did my share and I'm not killing myself for them anymore. On Tuesday, I looked at my beaver sweetie and says, "Are you sure you still want to do this weekend?" Because we knew back then it was going to be a little tough. And it was sort of like, it's like, this would be the time to cancel. It's like, come down with a cough. Sorry, we got to cancel. The sudden onset, I don't really want to do this anymore. Itis. All right. We have Kit Uncover the News with us. We have Kit Elaine saying good morning, everyone in TGIF. We have Kit. The Breens are with us this morning. Hello, dear ones. Hope you are doing well. Morning, fam. Morning, fam, dam. Good morning, Elaine. Yeah. So we're the fam dam now, not just the damn fam. I don't care what you call us, so long as you call us. We have Kit Uncover the News announcing to us that breaking news: Donald Trump didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize this year. Shocker! We're so surprised. Have you fallen off the floor yet? The Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Venezuelan activist Maria Corina Machado, and all the other Nobels were awarded this week too. And so hopefully we'll have a moment to go through those, if not today, on another show. We have Kit Mayhem here smiling and waving. We have Kit Tavi G. We have Kit Moan with us saying hello to the damn fam, offering a wave and a cup of coffee. And hello to you and to all the family at home where you are. We have the Sauce Boss with us saying good morning, Kit Saucy. We have Kit Jenny here saying good Friday morning. Hello. So nice to see you in the chat. Glad you're here. We have Kit Linda M, as mentioned, saying good morning. We also have in the chat with us this morning Kit Grace saying morning, damn fam, and good morning to you. Hope you are doing well. Kit Nona Carol is here with us saying good morning as well and offering a very friendly wave. And is there anybody else, kids and cubs? Oh, I see somebody said my condolences, and I do not know why for a reason. I guess I must have missed why that is in the chat. But if somebody's going through a tough time, our condolences too. Sending some love. Who else do we have here in the chat? I think that's everyone. Kid Christian, as we mentioned, yes, typically staying in the spring. Yes, that we did want to do that, but we had a very, 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 very rainy spring this year, which made it very difficult. We have Kit Wishful with us saying good morning, and good morning to you. Anybody else coming in, sliding across the plate at the last second? Going through. So far, no. So far, no. Oh, yes. Oh, we have a Spice Girl with us, Kit Mel C. Hey, hey, hey. Good morning to you. All right. And that is everybody sliding across the plate. And speaking of sliding across the plate, yes, Kits and Cubs, a few days ago, because we would have talked about it on yesterday's show, but it was a pre record. The Blue Jays got past the Yankees. I did not watch game 4 and they won. See, I told you I jinxed game 3. It's the only one that I watched portions of, and it's the only one they lost. And they were winning before I started watching. But I was following on live score as it was going, however, checking in every few minutes because I didn't want to jinx it. So, yes, they have won, and they will, I guess, go to their division, I guess, final. And we will find out later today who it is that they will be playing because the other two teams playing, it's a best of 5 series at this stage. The other team playing the other team that could be in the final, the division final with the Blue Jays are playing tonight, and it's the Seattle Mariners and the Detroit Tigers that will be at 8 p.m. Eastern time for those who are following that. I think the Detroit Tigers, uh, uh, for most of the season, had been in third place in the division. At point, it was very close between all three, and uh, near the end, and then the Detroiters went on a little bit of a skid in the end. But yes, them two teams are playing, and one of them will be the Jays' opponent while they get a couple of extra days rest to go into that division final. But the bandwagon is still rolling, Kits and Cubs. Woohoo! Go. We're so exciting. So I have to do it. Okay. Okay. Blue Jays. Blue Jays. Let's play ball. Yeah. And again, yes, I did not warm up the singing voice this morning because normally that last ball comes out better than that. Get your minds out the gutter. I'm talking baseball here. All right, kids and cubs. So yes, we have some stuff to celebrate and to get the morning started off right. Okay, let's dive into the stuff, kids and cubs. Um, it's a little bit about oil today because there were some interesting developments over the past few days. This one has been going on for a little bit, but David Eby, Premier of British Columbia, and Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, have sort of been going at it. And while they are going at each other and saying some pretty interesting things about each other, they are both trying to make the effort throughout it to say, "Oh, well, no, I personally like them. I don't have a beef with them personally." It's a lot of, um, I don't have a problem with the person. I have a problem with the behavior type of talk. But th- they are at each other's throats. Seriously. Uh, and of course, other people are getting involved here and there, sniping from the sidelines. Jason Kenney, who really wants Pierre's job, uh, um, uh, has a lot to say about a lot of things. These days, I go on his Twitter feed, and several of his tweets are way past the 280 characters. But he's got that blue check mark, and he writes these long screeds. Um, uh, most of them completely unhelpful, and with the typical stuff that you've come to know. With Jason Kenney, the way that he talks, and um, always inflames and pumps things up and amplifies things and torques and twists and skews. The Jason Kenney model is the was the one that was established and that all of them seem to follow now, but is now on steroids. Um, you know, Jason Kenney, he of those in the conservative movement who warned that the inmates were about to take over the asylum, but and then got taken over by the inmates in the asylum and booted. You have to remember Jason Kenney um, for all the talk about him and all the profile he gets. The only way that Jason Kenney could be quote unquote a political star is within the conservative movement because that man has failed at absolutely everything he has tried. Pretty much. He did great outreach with ethnic and cultural communities in the first few years that he was with Harper, but Harper torched all of that when he decided to go scorched earth on niqab bans and citizenship ceremonies and all that type of stuff. But every file Jason Kenney handled when he was in Ottawa, he bungled. The temporary foreign workers program that we're talking about now, he's the one that brought about some changes that caused some of the situations that we're in now. And now you have all the conservatives saying we need to scrap it entirely. Oh, scrap the program you created because it was so good. Jason Kenney was at National Defense for a while, screwed that up too while he was there. I think he was at HRDC. He had to be at HRD, whatever, human I keep on calling it HRDC because that's what it was when I was working there, but I think it's a um, I don't remember what they're calling the department now, but it's the cradle to grave department. We call it. So all the stuff with workers, EI, your social insurance number, federal student loans, your OAS, your GIS, all of that kind of stuff. That department uh, didn't do well there either. Um, Pretty much everywhere he went, he did terrible, uh, and earned himself the nickname Bumbles along the way in Ottawa. And then, of course, he's the one that did the whole Unite the Right thing in Alberta and then became premier. And then we had the kamikaze candidate thing because even though he had it in the bag, he uh, allegedly still felt he needed to do extra things that were maybe not totally above board in order to make sure he won. And then he won and got a majority and managed to get himself booted out of his out of his position during COVID because he had spent 20 something years fueling uh, this insane push that we see from the right and the change in rhetoric and all the venom and the poison all the time. And it came back to finally bite him and had to go into political exile for a few years. And then sensing that it was maybe he had been gone long enough and that we missed him, we haven't. By the way, Jason, you could stay gone. Decided it was his time, and then picked up a position working somehow with the National Post Organization, which uh, unhelpful organization to Canada and Canadians, and has been popping up everywhere that anybody will have him on camera to deliver his opinions in his usually engaging and charming and uh, rallying. You can detect the sarcasm dripping from my voice, I hope, style. Um, but yeah, he decided he was sticking his nose into it as well. But we have um, Smith and Eby, both of them needing an issue at the moment. Smith, even though she's still relatively popular within her base, there is some word on the tweet that you know, she is feeling the heat because I mean it's just nothing but scandal around her. Uh, Smith and Ford are easily the two most corrupt premiers in Canada at the moment, and by the evidence of our eyes and ears at least, and both of them seem to be the most corrupt premiers in each of their respective provinces' entire history, and yet they are very popular with their own bases, and for some reason, the RCMP investigation to Doug Ford, there never seems to be any updates whatsoever. And I just don't know what's taken so long. I mean, if there's that much evidence for them to be sifting through, and Doug Ford keeps on adding stuff to the pile that they could be called in to look into. um, I don't know, man. But them two are a mess. But it seems that in Danielle Smith's personal realm, as it is going now, all these scandals and whatnot have them discussing, according to the word on the tweet, maybe going to an election early to try and secure another 4 years before a lot of poop on the scandals that we all know about hit the fan and there's something that finally sticks. Um, so we'll see about that. But Daniel Smith needs an issue. And as we keep on saying on this show, Danielle Smith does not appear to have an identity. She is fighting Ottawa, and if Ottawa is not available, fighting someone. So here she has David Eby and Ottawa on the side, take swings at, and she's hoping by being Again, the oil lobbyist masquerading as a premier and saying that she's standing up for Alberta and having people go, oh, well, at least she's fighting for us. Look at her fight. That will be enough to get her through. And David Eby, who, even though the Conservatives in British Columbia are imploding around him because they can't stop fighting with each other either, um, it's not showing up in the polls. Polls are still pretty equal between David Eby and the Conservative Party of British Columbia, and that's with the leader of the Conservative Party of British Columbia uh, risking getting the Jason Kenney treatment, being booted by his own party. But the party itself, despite all the turmoil and the drama, is still high in the polls. And David Eby needs a bit of an issue because certain things, after a while, time catches up with you as a premier and things accumulate and, public sentiment starts to wane. It happens to everyone. It's just the natural cycle of politics. So he needs an issue, and he seems to have one. And so far, from what I've been observing, and it could be my own personal bias because on the issue about which they're fighting, uh, I have a side myself. I personally agree more with Eby than Premier Smith on this one. And it's not just because I'm not a big fan of Danielle Smith in all other realms, but on the merits of the arguments, David Eby has a solid point, whereas Danielle Smith doesn't really have one at all. In terms of premiers that seem to be wanting to do things for their provinces, according to what I've been hearing in news reports, British Columbia has 22 different projects that it has pitched in various forms to the National Projects Office, and Alberta seems to have two, and both of them are the same one. They have the Pathways one, which is carbon capture and storage, which is a technology that we've been talking about since the days of Harper. Harper was the conservative solution for all things environment is don't change a damn thing. Keep on doing what you're doing and hope someday some scientist, which is really ironic because conservatives hate experts in science, but some scientist comes up with some new technology that will save us. And then, of course, hoping, fingers crossed, that we have a conservative government. If we had a conservative government in place at the time, it would be a conservative government that would see the usefulness of that technology and actually wish to deploy it, which is not a guarantee because the conservative parties in Canada seem uh, terribly adverse to the point of breaking out into hives to doing absolutely anything that will cost the oil industry a single cent more to operate. And therefore, having to adopt a new technology would cost them money. Right. So it's not even guaranteed. But the whole thing is that let's just pray for some scientific development. And the one that Harper was pushing in his day was carbon capture and storage. It's going to happen any day now. We don't have to change anything. We just need to invest more in carbon capture and storage and then deploy it. Well, here we are, 10 years of Harper, and then 10 years of Trudeau, and 6 months into Carney, and carbon capture and storage is still all over the world with everybody looking into it and all the money we putting into it. Still not really a thing. Still not a reliable technology. Still not a technology that achieves um, a rate of effectiveness that everybody has been touting it would now for the better part of 2 decades. So, had we followed Harper's plan and just done nothing for 20 years and a half, while allowing everything else to just continue on the same track or even accelerate, we would be in a way worse position today than we are because the Deus ex machina never materialized. That's I think, a God outside the machine or something, or the magical hand of God coming out. That never happened. So she's got Pathways, which apparently is a carbon capture uh, storage project that would decarbonize not the actual burning of any fossil fuels, but the production and the extraction of it to the point that they can call it whatever that really means and how much it is decarbonized really, but decarbonized oil. And they talk about that, but it's not decarbonized oil, it's decarbonized oil extraction process. And maybe shipping as much as possible, but not the oil itself is not decarbonized. It's not like they take the oil and pass it through a system to remove the carbon from it. Um, but yes, the decarbonized barrel, so to speak, in oil and gas lingo, would be the product, and then the pathways thing would create the permission structure for another pipeline that would be able to carry about a million barrels worth per day. That's sort of Danielle Smith's stated goal. And please put a pin in that to the million barrels a day because there's been other developments that kind of affect that. But it seems that Danielle Smith wants another million barrels per day, and that the grand bargain allegedly is that we support this pathways thing, and then we get a pipeline. Now, when somebody tells me that, as a layperson sitting at home, I'm saying, okay, so you're telling me you're going to build this pathways thing, and then it's going to be put in place and it's going to become operational, and then we're going to see if it achieves the carbon reductions possible. And if it does, then we have the green light. To start building the pipeline, which would put the pipeline back several years, maybe even close to a decade. And Danielle Smith is not happy with that, of course. She says, well, now that we've agreed that we're going to pursue pathways, we can do that pipeline right away before we get any benefit of pathways or even know if it works. I don't think that's what everybody had in mind when they suggested that, but Danielle Smith pushing for it because she only knows how to do one thing: push for oil. And even though British Columbia has suggested 22 different projects, Danielle Smith, for some reason, appears to be taking the position, and this is an odd one, given that Alberta, various successive conservative governments of Alberta keep on trying to shove down all of the throats of all Canadians just how important the oil sector is and how much apparently it generates for Canada. And, it's like the biggest producer and all that kind of stuff. And we should all be thankful and on our knees and grateful that Alberta happens to extract that oil so that we can get all the benefits of the royalties and all that kind of stuff without talking about all the costs, environmental and higher insurance and everything that it also causes us, right? That's the spin part. Just look at all the money it breaks in. Yeah, but look at how much it's costing us. The accumulated deficit in abandoned wells that for some reason oil companies always promise that they are going to clean up, but never have to for some reason. Wonder why that is. Government never actually enforces that part of the contract. Um, so yeah, right. Um, Trying to make us believe that it's all that when really oil is only about 10% of the entire Canadian economy. And at the moment, solar, I just saw a newspaper article not too long ago, I think 2 days ago, stating that solar is now uh, the hands down most effective and um, cost effective and probably even cheapest form of energy now. So much so, probably, I would guess that all the money that Danielle Smith wants to put into this oil pipeline, we could probably take that money and put it into solar and probably have, and of course, battery storage and all that kind of stuff that would need to go with it, and probably have a better overall outcome for Canada. So, yeah. Um, she's not particularly impressive here at the moment. Uh, but yes, trying Alberta has been doing this for a long time, and then trying to, even though Canada has put $34 billion into TMX to get a pipeline to Tidewater. So now we have a bitumen pipeline to Tidewater, and we have an LNG pipeline to Tidewater on the west coast. All both of them courtesy of liberal governments, even though you still have conservatives all over the internet saying like this, you know, net zero Carney and liberals, you can never depend on them to get a pipeline. And another one, Keystone XL, seems to have emerged from the dead also thanks to Mark Carney. So you have conservatives saying like this, you can't get oil pipelines with liberals, or you can't get gas pipelines with liberals. And the two that we have to Tidewater have happened under liberals. And there's now talk of a third pipeline. This, and it's also because of liberals. So conservatives talk a good game about wanting pipelines, and it's almost like Mark Carney is almost trying to make the point that if you do want a pipeline in Canada, you need to get a liberal to do it, because conservatives will talk about it and raise money off it, but they won't actually do it because, again, they need the drama. They don't need the solution, right? If you get the pipeline built, then what are you going to raise money off of? It's there. So we all spent $34 billion doing the TMX thing, and then the government of Alberta seems to keep on suggesting that it's impossible to get pipelines to Tidewater. When we do, it's impossible to get them under Liberals. When we got them under Liberals, and seem to celebrate all the additional money that they're making from the pipeline, we all bought them, but without acknowledging that it was ever actually really built or who did it. It's very, very weird. Patting themselves on the back for their incredible management of the resource without explaining how magically they are making all this extra money per year, keep on claiming about emissions and production caps while producing the most amount of oil ever in Canadian history and making the most money ever in Canadian history off it. But apparently, we're terrible and awful to them. And you have Danielle Smith going around saying things like, well, if Alberta is the only province that's not allowed to build its projects, then we don't really have a Canada that works, because obviously Danielle Smith, whenever she wants something, she always has to threaten Canadian unity or sovereignty or something like that in the process. And uh, again, um, trying to create a situation in which her astounding lack of creativity and imagination, because again, her position seems to be that the only thing Alberta can offer Canada and the world is oil and nothing else. When asked directly, if an oil pipeline can't work, what other projects do you have? She doesn't have any. So it's not really about all the other provinces being allowed to propose projects. It's about Danielle Smith deciding that she only wants to propose one project to the exclusion of all others, and try to basically force Canada into a project that we may not want or need, is by pretending that there are no others, and that if we don't do this one, is that we're all anti-Alberta. That's the strategy. Instead of coming to the table with a whole ton of projects from various fields and seeing which ones get through, and then saying, "Hey, we've generated this economic activity for Canada and Alberta through whatever other projects." For her, it really is a pipeline or bust, and that's all there is to it. And if she can't get a pipeline, she doesn't want anything else. She doesn't want anything else for Canada. She doesn't want anything else for Albertans. If I was an Albertan, I would have a problem with that. I'd be sitting there, it's like, shouldn't you be playing the odds? Why haven't you, with all that time that you have and all the resources that we are giving you, why aren't you are able to come up with a project that is not a pipeline in addition to that? Just one to put on the list, or pipeline related or oil related. There's nothing. There's nothing about an electrical grid. There's no mine. There's no nothing. This, we're talking the Churchill port got put on the list. Why aren't you talking about a pipeline to there? Why does it absolutely have to be going uh, towards British Columbia yet again? In the same path that's already pretty much the same path that's already been rejected, right? Not particularly helpful. She has been here, um, but hey, when have we ever expected Danielle Smith to be helpful? Seriously. Yeah, I know. I'm asking a lot. So Danielle Smith, and then, of course, David Eby has been all over the press as well, and he's been talking about, uh, you know, the risks to projects in British Columbia that are way further along the one that Danielle Smith has. Uh, they put the ball in the court of Danielle Smith to find a proponent one, and has decided that she herself is going to be the proponent by creating some type of provincial corporation and funding it with $14 million. How much of that $14 million Danielle is going to spend on food, drink, entertainment, and hotels and travel for herself as she tries to bring this project to completion. Lord only knows. Um, but that's a figure I would monitor closely if I was interested in this subject specifically. Um, but yes, that $14 million in order to do it while maintaining that it's not going to be a government funded initiative in any way, shape, or form once she gets her concepts of a proponent and plan approved and on the list. That for sure will get the private investment coming, and then she can hand it off, and then it will be not publicly funded pipeline. But there's nobody out there saying, yeah, if you do all of these things, we will definitely step up and fund it. So she's got nothing. She literally has nothing. She she's trying to make fetch happen. And she's mobilizing a lot of stuff and causing a lot of damage along the way, trying to make fetch happen. But she's trying to make fetch happen. She literally does have nothing. And David Eby, well, he's been pointing that out a lot, often, every chance he has, to be totally honest. And again, as I say, I have to be honest. I'm going to be all the way honest. Um, both of them really need this topic. Politically, strategy, like this, let's forget the merits of the project. Let's forget all the environmental arguments, all the economic arguments, all of it. Is both of them need this fight politically, where they are situated politically. Both of them need it. Problem for Danielle Smith is that this is a winning issue for the BC Premier, way more than it is for her, because for her this is just more of the same. But for David Eby, this is an opportunity for him to step up. He's pretty mild mannered. He's pretty soft spoken. He's being firm and very unequivocal with his words when he's talking about this subject, and he looks much more natural and authentic in making his case than she does because, well, everything Danielle Smith does is some type of political performance art. So it seems much more authentic and genuine coming from Premier Eby. And it is because in the manner in which Premier Eby is framing it, some of the things that Danielle Smith and her team have been doing are putting at risk billions of dollars in actual real projects that have proponents, that have people behind them, that are shovel ready and ready to go, and not just some dream in someone's head that someone is really trying to make happen. But these are things that are actually happening. And because in British Columbia, the agreement with First Nations on no tankers traveling through a certain waterways that are extremely pristine, that are have other economic benefits in terms of fishing, ecotourism, and all that kind of stuff. That are all of that is, and of course, very important to the First Nations who live there. This agreement that they have is foundational to all these other projects happening. If the commitment to keeping those waters pristine goes away, probably so do all of those projects. So David Eby is watching a fellow premier who's saying, if you don't give me this one project and only project that I've put forward and that I want, you know, Canada doesn't work and we're not a real country, and looking at her and saying, hold on and wait a minute here, Premier. Uh, what you are doing, what you are demanding, is asking us in British Columbia to put the kibosh on all these billions of dollars of projects just to make you happy when you don't have anything to go. No proponent, no money, no route, no consultation, no environmental assessment, nothing. But you want us to have all our projects that have all of those things and are ready to go, to shelve all of those and put those at risk just so that we can make you happy and pretend that there's a pipeline along the way? Fuck no. We will not be doing that today. Thank you very much. And is very firm and is on solid ground here because he actually does have those projects to point to. Whereas she has 3 companies that are willing to not do much more but form an advisory committee. Just saying. So he's on very solid standing and he is winning this one. This for David Eby is an issue that he can take, he can run with, he can run an ultra marathon with it, and mileage out of it, and it's working for him. So Eby has been everywhere. There have been many interviews, and you've probably seen some along the way. But a few days ago, I believe he was in British Columbia doing a daycare announcement. And of course, we got to the question and answer period, and nobody asked him a damn thing about the reason for which he showed up and called the presser and wanted to ask pretty much everything about oil. So he was at a specifically here, according to CPAC, at a news conference in Victoria, British Columbia, where he was discussing government's recent legislation that will allow school districts to provide childcare on school grounds. If I'm not mistaken, it has something to do with the fact that um, there's a lot of parents that don't necessarily work a 9 to 5 schedule or 9 to 3 schedule when people are at school and that type of stuff. So the British Columbia schools are going to provide some type of childcare I think maybe in the hours before school starts and the hours after school starts to help parents in that sense. There already are the buildings, the institutions. All you have to make sure is that you have the licensed professionals to provide, the appropriate care for the kids in those hours. And so it's a good idea. It's a good program. But nobody was interested in asking him about that because of all the drama, darlings, happening on that front. So let's get into, we'll hop right over to the question and answer period, even though the announcement itself was worthwhile, and maybe we'll have a little time to focus on that at some other point. But because I'm petty. And I love someone finally saying what all of us have been thinking about Danielle Smith out loud. Here is Premier David Eby in the question and answer. And this is a portion of his answers on the matter that there have been smaller clips of it circulating on the web. So you may have potentially seen elements of this prior. So here we go, kits and cubs. Oh, I did it to myself again. Okay, hold on. I see myself. Silly me. My bad. I blew up the screen before having switched it over to you, which of course makes things a little tricky to come back to the screen and then share it. Here we go. That's the proper screen. And now I'm going to have to change. Don't be slow today. All right, change the timestamp as the start of the answer already started taking place. There we go. And now I show you this. So this is the very first question he has asked during this press availability about it. And to be totally honest, most of the questions in the press availability became about this.
Premier Eby, I'm sure you've seen at this point that Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is in Ottawa this morning. She described your comments as un-Canadian and unconstitutional. What do you say to the concerns that the Premier has raised about your opposition to a potential pipeline to BC's coast being un-Canadian?
Well, I think the big challenge here, and the challenge that I face as BC Premier, is British Columbia is poised to lead Canada into the new economy that we're all understanding is so crucial to create, one in which we're less dependent on the United States, one in which we're accessing world markets, one in which we're standing on our own 2 feet as a country. British Columbia is advancing more than $40 billion worth of projects, real projects with proponents, with financing that are reaching final investment decision. They're going to employ people, not just in every corner of British Columbia, but employ Canadians from across Canada. And 50,000 people helped to build LNG Canada Phase 1. They came from every corner of this country. And the net benefit of that export project, the largest private sector investment in Canadian history, delivered by our government, the net benefit of that flows to all Canadians and to British Columbians. And so that's our work. And a significant piece of the BC economy, a significant aspect of the social license we have to deliver major projects like that and projects that are coming, is the support of communities up and down our amazing coast here in British Columbia. And so if you want to put that goodwill at risk, if you want to threaten these projects and say, we know that your goodwill and your support is dependent on a tanker ban, that the fishing grounds that you count on, the tourism you count on, the lifestyle that you enjoy as a coastal community member, that it's protected by the tanker ban. If we want to say we're going to get rid of that tanker ban and we're going to go after your way of life, let's at least make sure that the conversation is about a real project. Right now, the province of BC, the Premier of BC, is not a threat to the pipeline project of the Premier of Alberta because there is no pipeline project. There is a public relations department. There is a Crown Corporation with $14 million. The only way currently that project is going forward is with tens of billions of dollars of public money. And if this is in fact another multi-billion dollar federally funded Alberta project, then where is the multi-billion dollar federally funded project in British Columbia? That is the question that I'm asking. And what is the opportunity cost of a multi-billion dollar taxpayer funded Alberta project compared to what we can deliver here in BC, what we can deliver in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, the Maritimes, Newfoundland? You show premiers the opportunity to spend tens of billions of federal tax dollars, and what can they deliver? Give everybody a fair shot. It's not the Danielle Smith show, it's the Canadian team. And we all deserve the same opportunity for the same federal funding for our projects as she does for hers. That's not un-Canadian, that is fair, and there is nothing more Canadian than fairness. That is a core national value.
Amen and hallelujah. Oh, there you go, kids and cubs. The Premier is not having it in any way, shape, or form. Saying a lot of the things out loud that a lot of us have been saying about Danielle Smith for a while. She doesn't have a project. She has a PR department. And we can say that about everything. She doesn't have policy. She has a PR department. She doesn't have plan. She has a PR department. Everything is PR with Danielle. And of course, everything around that PR machine is centered around her fighting against someone. And always seemingly to mask, distract, or compensate for something else that she can't do or she lacks. I guess when you're running a province that has the lowest minimum wage, the lowest per student funding of education, the second highest unemployment rate, and you've driven away billions of dollars in investments in renewables, all for the sake of pipelines, which you're not managed to get built. And you're being sued left, right, and center. And the healthcare system is a shambles after you said you would improve it, while you're pretending that you are not a separatist, but making everything easier for separatists to actually uh, take. Pull the province apart while simultaneously finding the smallest group of the most vulnerable people, that would be transgender kids, and punching down on them for political stunting and points. Um, yeah, th- perhaps you would want to go all around the press pretending that you have a pipeline and calling everybody who points out that you don't un-Canadian. Yes, because in Danielle Smith's world, everybody else has to help her realize her projects, but she doesn't have to do a damn thing to help anybody realize theirs. She's still coming to all these interviews talking about those alleged 9 bad laws. So despite the fact that we gave her a $34 billion pipeline already that she only acknowledges the existence of when she's patting herself on the back for how much money it's bringing in. And despite the fact, well, without going on to all of it, uh, well, let's put it, yeah, let's go. Despite the fact that we are engaging her and entertaining her pipeline fever dream that has no proponent and probably will never happen, despite the fact that the prime minister keeps on meeting with her one on one, and because she is so high maintenance and trying to make her feel important, despite the fact that all of Canada is still subsidizing Alberta's 0% PST, despite the fact that she is not cleaning up the oil wells. Uh, all of that stuff, despite all the contracts are being broken, we still need to be helping her. And as far as I can tell, she still has not done one thing. She hasn't relented on on anything of those 9 laws. She keeps on making all the same arguments while claiming that she's hopeful and whatnot that things will get better. She hasn't changed her position on anything whatsoever. She hasn't been helpful in anything whatsoever. She hasn't proactively helped. American booze is still being put on Alberta's shelves. She's still saying things like, "Well, if we can't do this, we'll just have to make our own side deals with the United States to put more oil south of us," which seems to me to be a really stupid decision, given that we are selling oil to the United States at a discount, and they are at war with us. So, why would, or at least in a trade war? So why would we help them? But out there threatening say, okay, well, then I guess I'll just do more north south projects then on my own with the United States and all that kind of stuff. But there's always a threat. There's always a knife to our necks somehow. I'm going to pass this Alberta Sovereignty Act. If I don't get my way, I don't know what that says about Canada. I don't know what the consequences will be. I don't know. But there's always a knife at our necks. Yes. But everybody else is un-Canadian. Because holding the knife to the neck to the entire country to get what you want when you're being absolutely unhelpful with anything else apparently is not un-Canadian. He's on very solid ground here, and making the case on behalf of all the other provinces and territories. Alberta got $34 billion for a pipeline to Tidewater, TMX, and they're coming back and saying, we want more. Where's our $34 million from the federal government that we can put into our own project? I'm sure Yukon would like the federal government to put $34 billion into a project that's really important to them. I'm sure Newfoundland would want that. PI would love that. When do other people get what Alberta gets? and starting to express the frustration, as you said at the end. It's not the Danielle Smith show. Danielle Smith appears to think it's the Danielle Smith show. But Premier Eby said, there are 12 other people here. There are 12 other provinces and territories, and we all have projects. Why are you demanding all the attention? Why are you demanding that everybody should bend over backwards to help you with yours when you won't do a fucking thing to help anybody else with theirs? And you're actually putting ours at risk at the moment. David Eby has a very solid point here. The ground he is treading is way more solid than the one that Danielle Smith is treading here. Now, of course, as is the case with this, and whenever it comes to oil, Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan is always the dutiful little brother standing right beside Alberta and going, yeah, what she said. So the next few questions have something to do with a little bit the dynamic of Premier Scott Moe and Saskatchewan and Alberta sort of working together to push this concept. Now, for Saskatchewan, when we say push it, working together, Saskatchewan, all it has to do is, yeah, me too, right? It's not Saskatchewan is not putting a single penny into that $14 million that Danielle Smith has set aside for the type of work that she's doing. And another element with that $14 million, even though that sounds like a lot of money from what I've been listening to, is nowhere near enough money to do the type of project work, planning work that is needed in order to get the advice and come up with a route and do some basic environmental assessments and do consultation that is meaningful with First Nations communities in order to have an actual real project to actually present to the major projects office. So when Danielle Smith keeps on saying, well, government money shouldn't be going towards this type of thing or else it's a failure. Well, she's putting government money towards it now. Of course, she's making some distinction. Well, but this is different because it's a different phase and it just needs this little boost to get it going. And that's something we can definitely do. But it's still government money going towards a project that has no proponent in order to try and breathe some life into it when it seems to be a project that's dead in the water. So she is swallowing herself whole when she says if government money is going towards this, it means the project's a failure. And she's making the distinction between the pre-project work and the project work. Oh, no, it's perfectly fine for government money to go to the pre-project work, especially since I have to make a proponent magically appear. But let's see what David Eby has to Scott Moe putting his nose into it.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, because you're on a bit of a roll here. Let's stick to this topic. Scott Moe also said last week that the coast of British Columbia is not BC's coast, but Canada's coast. You mentioned the goodwill built up along the coast. What do you make of Premier Moe's comments around our coast?
Well, I agree with Premier Moe. I think that all Canadians should be proud of our Pacific coast and the opportunities that affords all Canadians, including Premier Moe and the potash industry. I have worked side by side with Premier Moe to promote port expansion, to be able to get his potash to international markets, to fight for the big potash companies to ship out of British Columbia and Canada instead of out of the United States. I'm keen to continue that work. All Canadians should take pride in the amazing Pacific coast of Canada. It is a remarkable place. It is visited by people around the world. Part of the intrinsic value that all Canadians feel when they look at that coast and their pride in our country is the fact that the coast has been well maintained, well managed, and is in fact that incredible wild space that we all value. The Great Bear Rainforest, for example. And so I encourage all Canadians, come, enjoy the coast. We'll work with you and make sure that your real projects get access to world markets. But please, don't ask us not to stand up for our coast, not to stand up for the lifestyle and the realities of people who live on the coast and have lived there for a long time and who rely on a clean and pristine coast and are supportive of economic development, but ask us to be careful, which I think is a very reasonable request.
Next, we'll head to Rob Buffum from CTV News.
Thanks, Premier. I just have one more on the same topic. Just the substance, the underlying substance of it that Scott Moe has indicated, and obviously Danielle Smith today, suggesting that BC has an obligation to provide access so they can realize their benefit of their resources. Is that point of view by BC that you were spearheading? Is that un-Canadian?
Well, I just asked for reciprocity. You know, where is Alberta's support for the $40 billion plus in projects, real projects, that British Columbia is bringing forward? I wouldn't expect Danielle Smith to spend her time campaigning on those. That's my job as Premier. And that is the opportunity that British Columbians bring to the national table. These projects pay for equalization for other provinces. These projects provide employment for people from other provinces who go home and pay their income tax in other provinces. These projects that we are advancing will pay royalties that support the federal government program of meeting our NATO commitments. British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Alberta, we all do this work, making sure that our country is able to function as a whole. We're going to keep doing it, but we do need support to do it. And that support means things like supporting the real projects that we're advancing. We ask for federal support for that. There's lots that we can do together. In fact, BC will be the economic engine of the new economy that we're building. But support also means, please don't upset the fragile consensus that we have currently that I hope to make durable and long-term for resource development in British Columbia and Canada and our coast with a project that doesn't actually exist, with a project that's not actually funded. Let's talk about real projects. Let's deliver those projects, our GDP. Let's create growth in the country. BC is on for that. Let's get going.
Follow up, Rob?
I do. Switching gears for a question on behalf of a colleague who's wondering about Surrey, where we're seeing an escalation of...
Sorry there, kids and cubs. The screen was low and transitioning to allow me to stop that in time. So there again, being asked a couple of questions here that are particularly important and making some points here as well. In these questions, they were asked about, it being Premier Scott Moe referring to the BC coast as being Canada's coast, and with that, then came a lot of discussion. Oh, so when you want access to the coast, it's Canada's coast, not BC's coast. But when we're talking about sharing the profits and royalties and the right to exploit the oil, it's Alberta's and oil and Saskatchewan's potash and Saskatchewan's oil. It's not Canada's. But when we get to the point where we need to get it to markets, then the coast doesn't belong to the province. The coast belongs to the country, but the resource belongs only to the province and not to the country. My. How convenient. So that point's been coming up, and it's like, yeah, you know what? If it is Canada's coastline, then it's Canada's oil. Because right now, you're acting as if it's Alberta's coastline and Alberta's oil. So you have a duty to help us. No, actually, no. British Columbia doesn't have a duty to help you, Alberta, get your products to market just because you want products to market. That's why it's important to be nice to your fellow premiers and your neighbors. Your neighbors are not obligated to help you. It would be nice if all of us in Canada were actually on Team Canada and helping each other with our projects. But for that, Danielle, perhaps you should lead by example. Don't come crying to us because you're getting the respect that you're showing everybody else. Let's talk about the shit dish you brought to the potluck and told us all to munch on. Right? And then of course, David Eby deftly, with regard to Scott Moe, saying, agree with Scott Moe about the coast, right? Like this. But if it's all of Canada's coast for all that kind of stuff, it should be all of Canada's coast for all the other stuff that's there too, right? Not just for oil, but for ecotourism and then fishing and all that kind of stuff too. And therefore, you should be just as engaged and active in promoting the coastal area for those purposes, as well as for the one that you would like it to be used for, that will make all the other ones impossible. Where's the reciprocity? Right? As the song goes, because the system works, this system called reciprocity. When you're good to mama, mama's good to you. Well, right now, David Eby is mama, and Danielle Smith isn't being good to mama. So mama's letting Danielle have it. So yeah, again, David Eby on extremely solid ground on these points, pointing out that these obligations and duties that these premiers claim that the BC premier has to them are not two-way streets, and they are two-way streets. Like he mentions, he's got projects ready to, and both of you are now trying to sabotage them. Why? All for a project that doesn't exist, that only exists in theory. And Kit Linda M, I think it was, had put out, I think it was Kit Linda M who put out a statement in the chat. Hold on, I'm going to check here to see if I can see it again. Oh, darn. It was so good. I even had put it up on screen there for a second. Oh, darn. I wish I could find it again. Yeah, but you had made a really, really good point that I want to build on. And I can't find it right now at the moment, which is upsets me. I should have written it down when I saw it. But I will find it and I will see it again. And hopefully I will be able to respond to it because it was very good. All right. Going back to the premier, there are certain criteria that the federal government has already laid out for what constitutes a project that could be of national importance. Kit Linda M, I believe, also had pointed out in the chat that those Danielle Smith project doesn't meet those. David Eby has basically lays out here what his test is, or what are his key questions as to whether or not something is a real project or not. And again, very reasonable and definitely on ground when giving this answer here. All right, so let's make sure we're ready to go. And we are. So again, the Premier of British Columbia, Kits and Cubs.
Repeatedly called this pipeline a fictional pipeline. But Danielle Smith said today she has assurances from the Prime Minister that there could be an announcement as soon as next month by Grey Cup. Is that a possibility that you see? Perhaps Mark Carney doesn't think it's fictional.
Look, there are going to be press conferences, there are going to be committees, there are going to be crown corporations, there are going to be a whole array of it. It could be on the list, it could not be on the list. The test for me about whether the project exists is the test I apply to whether a project exists in British Columbia. Is there a proponent? Is there funding? Does it look like they're going to invest? Are they approaching a final investment decision? Are they investing? Are they ready to go? Have they applied for permits? Have they gone through environmental assessment process? And when I put that lens on projects in BC, the tally quickly goes to more than $40 billion worth of projects that will deliver tens of billions of dollars annually to the federal and provincial economies. And so when I apply that test to the pipeline, it fails on every count. And so when they are ready, and frankly, I think I've expressed my skepticism, but they're not ready. There's no project. And the threat to our projects is very real. The activities engaged in by the Premier of Alberta pose a direct threat to major upgrades at the Port of Prince Rupert, for example, that depend on the support of the coastal First Nations, are a threat to the consensus around the support for LNG Canada Phase 2, which is a project worth tens of billions of dollars to the Canadian economy. I cannot fathom why that would take priority over the real projects that not just our province is advancing, but other provinces are as well.
So there you go. David Eby, again, putting out his key questions, very reasonable ones, as to what are the tests for something being a national project of interest. And I went back and I did find the comment from Kit Lindam, and it was the one about the project as Danielle Smith has it in current form, not meeting the criteria for what is a national project. So I did remember it and spoke to it, even though I couldn't remember that was the actual comment I wanted to speak of. But there you go. We have it. So I did 2 birds with 1 stone on that one. Yay for me. So yeah, those key questions here absolutely need to be answered for something to be considered seriously in the realm of what is an actual real project and one that would be of national interest. And in this case, that is not happening. The next set of questions specifically are asking if BC is alone in its opposition and whether or not British Columbia, if such a project became real, would try to block it. So here again, we have Premier Eby.
Only province opposed, and that if it's a majority situation, you will eventually lose out? Or are you the only one opposed to this project?
I mean, opposed to what, I guess is the question. What I'm opposed to is using our coast as a political tool instead of engaging in serious conversations about how we advance our economy as a country and the projects that are actually going to deliver that, the private sector projects that are actually going to deliver that. So I guess I would say I'm not opposed to any real project that's been proposed.
Thank you. Next, we'll head to Alec Lazenby from the Vancouver Sun.
Hi, Premier. Keeping in mind that there is no proponent and that this is not a real project at this time, what could BC do if a real project were to come forward to block such a project? And is that an action that you would look at taking if it came to that point?
Yeah, Alec, so it crossed my mind, obviously, and I did pursue this strategy for a bit of just saying, hey, look, you know, when Alberta gets their project together, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And because I didn't want this fight. I don't want this fight. We've got tons of work to do with Alberta. We can help lower electricity rates for Albertans through intertie. We've got a hydrogen industry to build together. We've got to get federal standards around how to get that hydrogen out to the coast. These are real projects that people actually want to do. There is a significant taxpayer-owned existing pipeline with an optimization project that could result in significant additional access to tidewater for Alberta bitumen, not even on the table. And so instead of talking about those things, and so I said, you know, maybe we can work on those things and then you can just work on your pipeline project that, bluntly, I don't believe is ever going to come to fruition because it is too expensive and the cost of oil is too low and there is no private proponent for it. So I'll just let it ride. But then the Premier of Alberta struck a Crown corporation, began calling coastal First Nations whose support we rely on for billions of dollars of projects, saying this is coming. And then they're calling me and saying, is this coming? What's happening? If you do this, all your other projects we're going to have to review because of the impacts on the coast. And I have to say, enough. We need, as a country, less politics and more projects. The projects are real in British Columbia. They are the envy, rightly, of many, many places around the world. We have resources to bring to market that will assist us in reducing our dependence on the United States employ a big pile of those young people that are looking for jobs right now, when we get them the trades training that they need, we're talking about thousands and thousands of jobs that are potentially going to be delivered through these projects. And so this isn't like a minor or trivial thing. This is the future of the BC economy and the future of the Canadian economy. And so I just ask a publicly funded pipeline. Then I want a $50 billion federal guarantee for projects in British Columbia as well. And I want $50 billion for every province across Canada and every territory, because their projects are just as damn important as Alberta's project is.
Woohoo! Whoa. David Eby again bringing heat here, again making the issue broader, saying, hey, listen, it's not only about BC, it's not only about me. You know, like this, if Danielle Smith is going to start demanding that Canada owes her $50 billion for a project, no matter how sound that project may or not be, no matter how real it may or may not be, then where's my $50 billion? Right here. Where's PEI's $50 billion? Where's Nunavut's $50 billion? Let's go. Let's put it up here. Why does Danielle get to be the only one who bellies up to the table and say, give me $50 billion? Again, on solid ground. In this one, he definitely skips the question or sidesteps the question about whether BC would do anything to block it in later interviews. Of course, I saw one on Power and Politics. I think it might have been yesterday or 2 days ago. David Eby does concede the fact that because it is an interprovincial type thing, the federal government does have a role to play here. It's not just BC that can unilaterally decide that, no, we're not going to do this. Now, on that front, it seems that Energy Minister Tim Hodgson has basically said, you know what, Alberta, BC, resolve your thing. Seems to be taking the position, oh, well, we're not going to force anybody to do that. And I think the Prime Minister had been on record on that a few months ago, saying that they would not try to impose a project of national importance coming from one province that needed another province's help on that province without their will or consent. So I don't think in the case of the Trans Mountain, the federal government bought the project and said it's happening. And while that is the law, the federal government can determine that the project is happening over the objections of a province. It seems that this particular government says, that's not a part of the load that we are prepared to lift, at least at this time. So you two need to resolve this amongst yourselves. We're not getting involved. Which is very, very clever. But David Eby did concede in an interview yesterday that is the case, and that he still respects that, and he intends to respect that. But as the Premier of British Columbia, he does have a duty to defend the coast and its uses for the purposes of the citizens of his own province specifically, and not as Canada's coast, but as the coast of British Columbia. So it is both the coast of British Columbia and Canada's coast, right? If we're being completely honest, and the federal government has some authorities and responsibilities, Coast Guard, for example, and that type of stuff, interborder drug law enforcement, like drugs and people smuggling and all that kind of stuff. And the government of British Columbia has other responsibilities, such as, for example, having something to do with managing fisheries, and again, ecotourism, environment, the portion of relations with Indigenous communities that falls constitutionally upon the provinces and not on the federal government. All of that is duties that Premier Eby has as it involves the coast as well. So it's not just one. It's not just Canada's coast. It's not just BC's coast. It's both, and there are shared responsibilities here. And in his capacity as Premier for the things that are his responsibility, without crossing over into federal jurisdiction, basically saying he does intend to do all he can. And While a province may not have constitutional authority to block it, a province can make a case to a federal government that is compelling enough, both a business case, but also um, a political case. I mean, it's not like the federal liberal government has tons of seats in Alberta to lose if it takes BC's side on this. But it has way more to lose in BC. That point could be made. I'm sure that point is being made. Right? Because wasn't it the premier of Saskatchewan? I think it was Brad Wall back in the day who, during an election, was really not happy and then tried to make it such that every single seat in Saskatchewan went blue, and it did. Even Ralph Goodale had lost his seat. And then a couple of weeks after that happened, everybody in Saskatchewan was, well, not everybody, but conservatives in Saskatchewan were complaining, oh, but now we won't have a minister in cabinet. Yeah, and whose fault is that? You can't have a minister in a federal liberal cabinet if you personally encouraged everyone in your province to not elect a liberal MP anywhere throughout the province. Perhaps you should have thought of that before you made that push. What if the Liberals win and we have no representation in cabinet? But you didn't. So don't come crying now because you had lack of forethought and foresight. That's not our problem. Don't come to us after the fact and trying to make it our problem. It's not. That's your shit. You created it. You own it. You deal with it. It's not. That's not our problem. So, I am sure that someone has made the point, or if they haven't, will be making the point now that it needs to be made, because I'm sure Mark Carney, as a central banker, can count and realize that he has much more to lose in BC than he has in Alberta. And given the Trudeau experience, giving Alberta a $34 billion pipeline and not getting any love for it whatsoever, either from the premier, the province, or in seats, again, I'm sure Mark Carney can do math. So, well, let's see, $34 billion got us one extra seat. We went from 1 to 2 seats in Alberta, maybe, or something, if that's the case. But it's not like we got 5, 6, or 8 all of a sudden. There was no benefit. There was absolutely no benefit to the Liberal Party of Canada in any way, shape, or form of having built Trans Mountain. Justin Trudeau spent a lot of political capital on that, lost a lot of support from the left, from environmentalists, for doing something that economically he did believe was in the right interest of the country and that he had hoped maybe would build a little more national unity. But, well, Alberta, the premiers, the Conservatives movement in Alberta was just not going to have that. So they got a $34 billion pipeline, and now they're talking about separating. All basically because some people didn't want to take a vaccine. Seriously. So I'm not sure that Mark Carney sees a lot for him in it. If he's doing the math, he realizes that he has more seats to lose in BC and that Danielle Smith is not a winner. Now, how much damage could Danielle Smith cause in terms of the fact that she's scorched earth and she is perfectly happy to burn it all down and rule over the ashes? And as David Gray would say, oh, and she has a bad side too. So yeah, David Eby on some very solid ground here. Another one of the comments that there was Linda M's comment, but there was another one that passed by and that I missed when I was trying to think of the ones that I wanted to answer to. When I saw it again, it was from Tabby G, asking about all those polls that seem to be supporting the Alberta pipeline. I want to make a very precision on that. That's the way that Danielle Smith and now everybody on the right is spinning it, particularly the petrosexuals from the oil industry, and I've seen a lot of those tweets. You have to be very, very careful. That is some very, very interested and clever, subtle spin. 75% of Canadians are in support of a pipeline project of some kind, given the current turmoil that the United States is imposing upon us. None of those survey questions are asking specifically about Danielle's pipeline or Danielle's semblance or illusion of or concepts of a pipeline. Just the concept. Do you support an additional pipeline or something? Well, yeah. There's money to be made, and we are in a tough situation, and we need some money probably sooner than later, and we do have to diversify our export markets and all that type of stuff. And sure, a lot of people, I mean, if you ask me, this, take away again the environmental argument that we shouldn't be burning anything at the moment, and therefore let's not make it easy for the world to do that by pumping more. But on a pure business case, are we too dependent on the United States? Yes. Because would I be supportive? For example, if I knew we could build another pipeline to some coast somewhere, and it would be oil that we are currently sending to the United States that we're sending other places without there being any additional oil, I would be quite happy to have another pipeline to diversify if we weren't putting overall more in it, right? If we weren't doing any additional damage. I'd be perfectly happy at that and say that we need one. So there's a lot of reasons that Canadians could think that a pipeline idea is good. But the question isn't about Danielle Smith's particular pipeline and her project to go through that particular area in BC. Because, as David Eby keeps on pointing out, there is no project. So Canadians are in favor, theoretically, of a pipeline, but not Danielle's. And we see that a lot from this industry. It's like, X number percent of Canadians agree that oil is an important part of Canadian economy. Well, of course, everybody agrees that oil is an important part of the Canadian economy. It's 10% of the GDP. But just because I have eyes and ears and can recognize that oil contributes 10% of our GDP, let's say, so I've seen other numbers that say it's lower, but let's say 10% to be generous. Okay, it's an important part of our economy. That doesn't mean I want it to become an even bigger part of the economy. It just means I recognize that currently it is an important part. The fact that I recognize it's an important part doesn't mean that I necessarily want us to invest more in it or make it even larger. So you always have to be careful with the way that the answers to these questions are spun, because they'll say, well, look, Canadians agree that oil is important to the economy, so therefore it must be obvious that we need to approve this pipeline. No. It just means that we can look at a balance sheet and recognize that 10% is not statistically insignificant. That's all it means. But they like to take these little bits of data and run with it and create the illusion of social license. That's the objective here. But you have to be careful. What's the specific question that was asked? And how do the people that want a certain outcome take the results to that specific question? And then cleverly, with either choice of words, either selective addition or selective omission or selective substitution of words, when they spin it back to us, try to manufacture the illusion that there's greater social license for a project than there actually is. So that's a little bit what's going on with that. And I'm glad that you did mention it to Kit Tabby G, because that is a very, very important aspect that one has to keep in mind if you want to be able to engage the critical thinking when you're seeing when the zone is being flooded with all that pro-oil, petrosexual type of rhetoric that we see here in Canada. All right, continuing on with the Premier. because he definitely has a lot to say about this, and the journalists are happy to hand him the mic to keep on saying it. Um, uh, this one here, he's asked a very important question. I'm glad it was asked because it's a question with a project that BC has that maybe is not as far as advanced as other ones. And here asking him how he sees the difference between that and the illusion of a project that Danielle Smith is trying to manufacture into a reality. So once again, kids and cubs, the premiere of
Yes, I do. On the North Coast transmission line, which is something that you will be introducing legislation on later this session, did a little bit about the chicken and the egg problem with that project, about needing to make sure that there's both the supply and the demand. How does that differ from what Alberta is proposing in terms of that project, because you need to go forward with it in a way that industry is comfortable with without necessarily having industry investment?
So that project, and I'm glad you raised it, that project, the North Coast Transmission Line, enables somewhere in the neighborhood of about $40 or $50 billion in capital, private capital investment in 11 mines in Tahltan territory. The electricity reduces the operating costs for the mines, making it possible to get to final investment decision to open those mines and hire thousands of people. The mines, when operating, will produce $15 billion annually in revenue for the federal and provincial government and for First Nations. This is a private sector-led initiative in the sense that these projects will not go ahead without the adequate electricity to reduce their operating costs and be able to make that final investment decision. So what we're talking about is an investment that is a fraction that will catalyze a massive private sector investment, and not only will open up those mines, but will enable the protection of wild spaces that are critically important to British Columbians in the Tahltan, as well as produce some of the lowest carbon metals anywhere in the world that all British Columbians can be proud of, while employing thousands of people in good union jobs that have benefits and support families. It is profoundly exciting, the opportunities that we are bringing forward, the amount of private capital that they will deploy in our province to build a strong future, to ensure we're delivering public services, and I am thrilled about it. And I am thrilled for any province or territory that brings forward projects like that, and I support them as well.
Thank you. Next, we'll head to Wolfgang Deppner from the Canadian Press.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. Back to metaphysics. Premier, can you sort of explain, or at least psychologize, if you wish, why Premier Smith is bringing up this particular issue now, and how do you explain her escalation in terms of the rhetoric? Because we've gone, in terms of rhetoric, we've seen an escalation. And can you sort of explain from your perspective why she's doing that? And how might today's meeting between the Prime Minister and President Trump fit into her rationale? Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, well, the challenge, I think, that I face is that the realities of Alberta politics are a long way from British Columbia. Premier Smith is doing what I assume Premier Smith feels she needs to do as the Premier of Alberta that is seeking re-election. What I can say, though, from British Columbia is, from my perspective, what we should be focused on, what we can be focused on, is working together to raise the quality of life of people in Alberta, people in British Columbia, and people across the country. And we should not be focused on what divides us, especially when what divides us is a non-existent project. So that's my perspective on this. It feels a lot more like communications and politics than profits and prosperity.
You have a follow-up, Wolf?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Ouch. Ooh. Wow, there's a line there. We'll definitely land, and I have a feeling that the Premier could use again. Wow. Darn, I wish I could remember how he started off. It looks more like something than profits and prosperity. But again, on a very solid ground with that point with regard to not only comparing those two projects, but then further along, and how it is he views the escalation that Danielle Smith has brought along. I'm gonna skip. There's more on this. I'm gonna skip over to another question here, where he is asked about other projects that BC might have on the list, and I think that the northern transmission. This gives him an opportunity to speak more extensively about. I think it was the northern transmission line. I think it was called, but the one. The project specifically that he was asked about in that previous question when he was asked to compare that project to the one that Danielle is trying to make real here in this particular instance. And so it gives him when he's asked about other projects, he comes back to that one and talks about it a bit. So here, I'm just going to make sure that I am perfectly lined up because this is a little further on in the press conference. There we go. And so more about, I think it is Northern Transmission Line. My apologies if I got the name of the project incorrectly here.
Timeline for the next round of federal major project picks that's coming up. You've mentioned the North Coast Transmission Line as something you'd maybe like to see Ottawa move forward with. What else is the top of your priority list at this point in time for those next set of projects in BC?
Yeah, I was glad to see the North Coast Transmission Line and the whole corridor, and including the mines included in. There was sort of a secondary list, I guess, that was referred to the Major Projects Office to support the development of proposals. I would love to see, and our big push is around the North Coast Transmission Line because it enables Indigenous partnership, protection of wild spaces, low carbon metals shipped at a low cost out of Canada to global markets, driving our economy, employing thousands of people. It checks off every box that you could possibly imagine in terms of federal and provincial government priorities, as well as the priorities of every Canadian. It'll be a project that we'll all be incredibly proud of, and I'm very hopeful that the feds include that on our list. That is our full push right now with the feds, is that particular project.
Follow up, Shannon?
Yeah, Jeremy mentioned the Exxon Valdez, but when I think about this latest sort of brewing conflict between BC and Alberta, the infrastructure involved, I think about the Trans Mountain pipeline twinning. I'm wondering, in light of this new proposal from Alberta, and what, if any, lessons you think BC might apply should that conflict continue to develop?
I don't know. I think there are some pretty significant differences between that project and this proposal. And there's some pretty significant realities that are different between that period of time and today. So I find it hard to compare those things. But one of the things that I do want to draw attention to in terms of that project is the fact that it's one of the areas where potentially we could be cooperating with Alberta, but instead, for whatever reason, it's not the priority of the Premier of Alberta. So I find that hard, but apparently necessary. And if so, I'll stand up for BC and our coast.
We have time for one last question. We're going to head to Julie.
So again, good opportunity to talk about the Northern Coastal Transmission Line. That's the full name of it. Again, talk about some lessons learned a little bit from the TMX. And the final question he's going to be asked upon this has to do with more provincial politics and the reaction of the Conservative Party of British Columbia.
Landry from Radio Canada.
Merci, bonjour. John Rostad said that he's looking into a way to go around the tanker ban, that it's possible. What do you think about that?
Well, this isn't a surprise to me. The BC Conservatives have taken every step they can to undermine our efforts as British Columbians to build the kind of economy that all Canadians deserve. To start with, when we were hit by the Trump tariffs, I heard repeatedly calls from the Conservatives to agree with Donald Trump. That Donald Trump was just asking us some very common things, and that we should immediately agree that we shouldn't take the alcohol off the shelves, we shouldn't retaliate, that was the wrong thing to do. Then we saw the Conservatives oppose the North Coast transmission line, an electrical line that will drive economic development up and down the Northwest Coast, will deliver thousands of jobs through 11 different mines representing $40 to $50 billion in capital investment, opposing that electrification. And now I hear that the Conservatives are having secret conversations with Danielle Smith about trying to get around the tanker ban that protects thousands of jobs up and down the coast for a project that doesn't even exist, and advocating for Alberta to get access to tens of billions of dollars of federal project money instead of advocating for BC to get access for tens of billions of dollars of federal project money. I can't understand why the Conservatives want to destroy our provincial economy, but I'll tell you this, I'm going to stand up for our economy, I'm going to stand up for building our projects, and we're going to deliver the kind of economy that all British Columbians and all Canadians can be proud of, and that's what I'm excited about.
Julie, you don't have a follow-up? Okay. And that concludes today's event. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
There you go. The Premier definitely laying it out there. I'm seeing the comments in the chat coming from the Kits and Cubs based on what Premier Eby has had to say. And stuff like, verbal spanking and all of that kind of stuff. And it's true. Like I said, he was not subtle in any way, shape, or form here, letting the Premier of Alberta have it. And it's about damn time that someone does. And it points out that this is not the Danielle Smith show, and that how there is absolutely no reciprocity when it comes to her. And making the point during that conference that it's not only that Danielle Smith says that she has a pipe, she wants to have a pipeline, but that she is has people on her team reaching out to some of these coastal First Nations and saying, that we have a pipeline coming. Let's talk about how this is going to happen. And them turning around. I thought we said no. Why are you trying to climb up all on top of us again after we've said no? And then going to David Eby said, do you know that this person next door has people calling us and asking, what the hell is that about? Because I thought we had an understanding. And if we no longer have an understanding, we need to rediscuss these projects to which we have given our approval. Because we may not be that keen on them happening. So, David Eby on extremely solid ground here. And making Danielle Smith look like the empty suit that she is. Now, the question here is whether or not Danielle Smith is going to get a pipeline, and it does look like Danielle Smith might get a pipeline, just not the one she wants, because Rosemary Barton of CBC broke the story. It seems that when the Prime Minister was in Washington, D.C. discussing with the President of the United States, when Dominic LeBlanc had his press conference after, mentioned that it seems that they were focusing more on working on things that had to do with steel, aluminum, and energy. And energy was an interesting one in the mix because nobody had been really talking about it specifically in this case, because there are no sectoral tariffs on energy. So why would that come up? And people are wondering, if it has something to do with critical minerals and other stuff of the like, maybe uranium for nuclear and that type of thing. But it seems that the Prime Minister has put the possibility of Keystone XL on the menu for the United States once again. Now, this is an interesting move. And again, we have to look at it two ways. Environmentally, dumb by any stretch of the imagination, right? And that's definitely going to impact him as the guy who wrote that book, Values, and apparently believes in the climate competitiveness and all that type of stuff. That's not helpful. It's not helpful in the sense that we are talking about trying to divest from the, well, not divest, but diversify away from the United States. And, Danielle Smith's going around saying, we need more pipelines east, west, north, and south. Any pipeline is a good pipeline. All pipelines are good. No. And we certainly don't need another pipeline south. Right? You have Pierre Poilievre going all over, who's been going all over for the past little while, claiming that it was the Liberals that made us much more dependent on the United States, even though the Liberals did get us the oil and the gas pipeline to Tidewater on the West Coast, and the Conservatives weren't able to get a single inch of that done. Kind of makes you wonder who really does want pipelines, right? But Conservatives claiming that Liberals made us much more dependent on the United States, while you have Danielle Smith talking about, well, we need more pipelines going south. It seems to me that the last thing we need is another pipeline going south. But it seems that Keystone XL, which would be a pipeline going south, is now on the table, and that Mark Carney put it on the table. And again, environmentally, while I object strenuously to this, I also, as a strategist, put on my strategy hat, have to admit that it could be a very clever move, in the sense that United States definitely needs energy, even though it keeps on claiming that we have nothing that they want. And Keystone XL does that. And of course, we sell our energy to the United States at a much lower cost, which was why I was making the other point, is that if we did have another pipeline, either west, north, or east, that would displace oil that we are currently selling to the United States a certain amount at a lower price, and allow us to sell that same amount of oil, so we're not producing more to other countries and get more for it. I would be all for that. That would be an interesting economic decision that does not necessarily create any additional environmental damage, if you would cap the amounts. Now, of course, if you create another pipeline, you have that pipeline capacity, and therefore it creates the possibility that more might pump through it, and that's a risk. So you would need to have very, very strong laws, and that hopefully that would last, and that somebody wouldn't just come right around afterwards and remove in order to prevent that. But that would be something that we could do. However, on a keeping Canada productive in the meantime aspect, as we are waiting for bigger projects to come online, and some of them could take several years, Keystone Pipeline does help in certain ways, in the sense that, strictly in the sense that, Keystone Pipeline was a project that was fully permitted in Canada, for all the things that, again, the Conservatives say about the Liberals and net zero Carney and all that kind of stuff, wanting to block pipelines. Liberals only want to block pipelines. Keystone XL was approved. It was approved. It's in the United States that authorization was removed. It was removed by President Obama, and then President Trump came in and wanted it, but wasn't able to get on the issue fast enough to get it done. Then President Joe Biden came into office, and he basically canceled it on day one of being in office. And now Donald Trump has mused about wanting it again. So it seems that Mark Carney has put it on the table. A lot of steel would be needed to build that pipeline. So Donald Trump, how about we build that Keystone Pipeline? And since a lot of steel will be required for that, why don't you cut down our sectoral tariffs on that steel, so that that project can happen, and you won't be punching yourself in the dick constantly when you're building it with the steel from Canada that you will need to do it because you don't produce enough of your own. Would you like that? In that sense, very clever. In another sense, Danielle Smith keeps on talking about an extra 1 million barrels per day of oil. Keystone XL would carry 830,000 barrels. Take that 830,000 barrels And that optimization of TMX that David Eby says is a real project that he could probably get on board with, but that Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is not mentioning at all in any way, shape, or form. That gets her 1 million extra barrels per day capacity before pathways is even a thing. It could be, even though it's environmentally not a good thing in any way, shape, or form, Keystone XL could be a way for the Prime Minister to put a pipeline project on the list by November, which would shut Danielle Smith up, and get her extra million barrels per day that she wants, and shut her up, and have a major project for the Canadian steel industry. And since it's already permitted in Canada, it would be ready to start sooner rather than later. So it would be an interim project, while some of the larger ones that might take a couple of extra years to get off the ground are doing that work, and then something he can point to as a win. And then something else he could point to and then say, TMX, that LNG pipeline through Kitimat, and now Keystone XL. Hey, Albertans, if you want pipelines, maybe you've been supporting the wrong party all along. And maybe that could have an electoral benefit. So there are some considerations that particular project, it has some positives for the situation that we're in and has a lot of negatives for other situations that we're in. I don't know how I feel about it, to be totally honest. I think I would prefer no additional pipelines, or again, if we did in a way that we're not causing any additional damage to what we're doing now. So the idea of emissions caps and all that type of stuff, I'm all for that, right? Because it is about emissions. If we can cap them and keep on reducing them like this while producing more oil, okay, I guess that's one thing. But if that oil can displace dirtier products across the world, or LNG, I'm all for that as well. But the idea of extra pipeline capacity overall doesn't thrill me, because I do acknowledge the situation that we are in environmentally, and none of this is good. However, in a shut Danielle Smith up, find more uses for Canadian steel as we're trying to manage this transition period, as we're trying to move away a little bit from the United States when it could cause us a lot of damage, and still maybe not kidding, want to annex us in certain ways. Or we had Howard Nutlick showing up a couple of days after that big meeting, going to an event in Toronto, stating that there was absolutely no interest from the United States whatsoever in any final assembly of automotive products being done in Canada. That the United States is very happy with America first, Canada second, and everybody else last, but America first. And that's not going to fly here in Canada when it comes to our auto industry. That's just not going to fly with how deeply integrated both countries are as a result of the Auto Pact. But we have, which is the other consideration with Keystone XL that makes me really nervous about it. It's okay, so we build another pipeline to the United States so that the United States can have access to a greater amount of our oil at a discount, and then we build that pipeline, now they have it, and then 3 months later, boom, something else. They hit us with something somewhere else. Right? Because the United States word means nothing, right? So I'm and then maybe then they sue us in international court because now we're no longer putting the oil in that pipeline that they spent so much money on their side of the border building the infrastructure for. The other advantage of that pipeline, now that it strikes me, is that also because it doesn't have to go through the Rockies, even though the pipeline is longer than the one that the Alberta Premier is proposing, it would probably be much less expensive and could probably be built much faster because the terrain is more agreeable. The fact that it's already permitted allows construction to happen much faster. So yeah, it's um, a complex series of trade-offs, and not only trade-offs in economic diversification to maintain the steel industry in the meantime, versus environment. Whatever political considerations there can be as to benefit to a certain politician or party, or lack of benefit, by taking action or lack thereof. Uh, but also, um, in the sense that trade-off, in, in the sense of how much are we wanting to put into the relationship with the United States versus the diversification of the economy, and our economic partners. We can't completely up and leave from the United States, right? There's certain things about geography and just how intertwined our economies are, and our continental defenses that make it such that we do have to deal with each other, and that it will never go down to zero, and that we do absolutely have to have some type of positive or constructive relationship with the United States on trade and continental defense. Um, but it doesn't change the fact that we have a partner that is completely unreliable, and to give access to critical minerals, to give access to additional oil when we have absolutely nothing to go on that would suggest that the country with whom we are engaging to do this will view us favorably any longer than the 6 seconds it takes to or the let's say 6 minutes, the 10 to 15 minutes that it takes to get through the signing ceremony for such things. That leaves me uneasy. As a trade-off, I would rather be spending our time and our resources trying to diversify rather than solidify our relationship with the United States. But we need to solidify our relationships with the United States, or at least get it to some semblance of rationality. And but there's even though we need to do it, I don't think that there's going to be that much for us in that, to be totally honest. Our bread is way more buttered on the diversification side, and that takes some time, right? You have to have all the legal architecture, but then relationship, just because you have to take the time to build the legal architecture, which we do have a leg up on many other nations by virtue of the fact that we are the most connected country in the world when it comes to free trade agreements with other nations. And but you still have to have the fact that we have the legal architecture doesn't mean that the face-to-face pressing the flesh part that happens, that is required for business transactions to happen between two nations and corporations between two nations has happened yet. That usually takes a certain amount of time to foster a good enough relationship with a company that it turns out that you want to build a project together in the billions of dollars or multiple billions of dollars, sometimes even hundreds of billions of dollars. Right? You don't just walk into a room into Las Vegas with someone and say, "Hey, I just met you for the first time. Yeah, I'm willing to sign on to this $100 billion project with you, a $32 billion project." There's more time that goes into that. And those are things that only time can do. And you need to have the time to do that. So yeah, we are further ahead of other nations in that we have one or two steps of that process, important ones that also take a lot of time completed. But relationships don't just happen overnight and don't happen because you've signed a piece of paper. It just creates um, terrain that is favorable for a budding relationship that could be mutually beneficial. But the fact that there's a signature doesn't mean that there is one yet, right? The rest of the work needs to be done. Which again, I find really interesting when you have the Conservatives complaining that the Prime Minister is out there traveling to other places to do precisely that work. I'm not quite sure what the Conservative plan is when you think about it, because he says, Pierre Poilievre says, I would go to the United States and I would try to negotiate a tariff-free deal. There's not one on the table. You could go to the United States and attempt to do the impossible, but there's none on the table. You are a smaller man and have fewer skills in that particular department than the guy that is actually there. If you've been listening to Question Period the last few days, Pierre is, I'm not sure what Pierre thinks he is winning by doing there. I mean, he's got his clips and his red meat stuff for the base, but he is proving again and again and again and again that he just has no grasp of the most fundamental elements of economics. And the Prime Minister keeps on giving him lessons in the economy. With every time that Pierre opens his mouth to speak about economic issues, he keeps on proving that the costing, the horrible costing in that disastrous platform that nearly got him laughed out of the country, that was not a bug, it's a feature. He just doesn't get economics. Pierre's latest thing is that when Prime Minister Mark Carney mentioned in his discussions with the President of the United States that if we got the deal that we expected, it could generate a certain amount of extra economic activity in the United States that would have a value that is particularly impressive and could get the attention of the United States. And again, when I spoke earlier of being careful of what people are putting out there, because there are words that are strategically added, omitted, or substituted in order to be able to put a different spin on that. Pierre and the Conservatives are doing that. The quote from Prime Minister Carney is, "We are the largest foreign investor in the United States, $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $1 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get." So basically, the Prime Minister going to the United States and making the case that, hey, if we get this type of agreement, right, the amount of foreign investor dollars that will bring to the United States could double from $500 billion to $1 trillion. And Pierre's take on this is Mark Carney says his new agreement will push $1 trillion of investment out of Canada to the United States. That's equal to 1/3 of Canada's entire GDP. Where is he going to get the $1 trillion? So Pierre is talking as if the government of Canada is going to take $1 trillion and just hand it over to the United States. Of course, that's not what it means. You had the Prime Minister stand up in the House and saying, do we need to introduce Pierre to this concept called foreign investment? So then Pierre then says, well, that will push $1 trillion investment out of Canada to the United States. That was not $1 trillion of investment that was coming into Canada. If there was no project with the United States, there's no reason for that extra $500 billion in investment. So yes, the extra projects that we would be engaging in, yes, would generate maybe another $500 billion of investment from private corporations into the United States. But it's not money that would be pushed out of Canada in favor to go to the United States. Because if the project exists, that means there's additional foreign investment in the United States, but additional foreign investment in Canada too, as a partner in the project. And responsible for a portion of the activity going on with that project. The fact that the Prime Minister of Canada mentioned to the United States how much additional foreign investor benefit could come to the United States as a result of getting the deal we expect to get with the United States does not mean that there will be no foreign investment coming into Canada, or as Pierre's trying to spin it, that that's foreign investment that would go to the United States that was destined to come to Canada if no deal existed and no projects as a result of that deal came to pass, is to go to the United States instead. Pierre Poilievre is trying to present this as the Prime Minister of Canada trying to do more to build the US economy than to build ours, or to do it at the expense of ours, when that is not the case at all. And if Pierre cannot understand that a better trade deal generates more foreign investor money for all nations involved in the deal, rather than take from one nation to give to another like it's a zero-sum game, he has no business being in politics, and he is confirming that that costing in his platform is a very precise indicator of his capacity for economics. And that should frighten the fuck out of everyone, because he really doesn't get it. If he honestly believes what he is saying, he just does not have the stuff to compete with Mark Carney on this level. So why is he talking? Because there's no value added coming from him. So yeah, there you go, kids and cubs. That's what we have for you today on the big battle between Eby and Danielle Smith. I could have presented some clips from Danielle Smith, but she doesn't say anything that you haven't heard her say before in any other clips that we've presented any time over the last 2 years. When it comes to oil, there just really isn't anything new. She just has a fresh target, and a new spin, a new frame on it. But it's the same damn old thing from her. So there was no point in showing anything. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us, because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. It makes us very happy. Now, kids and cubs, if there's something that you would like us to do for you, we can help, because we realize that sometimes you are on the go, making things happen, doing democracy, making the world a better place, but you still want to remain informed, and sometimes you don't have the chance to watch the show either live with the best damn fam in all of podcasting, or at your own convenience. So we like to help. And so does the Ray Girl, who has sponsored our pod page. Podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there, or you click the QR code that has just appeared on your screen right now, boom, like magic, that will take you to our pod page. And if you click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the audio cast bandwidth, it comes directly to your favorite podcast feed. And then you can pop us into your ears and take us with you. We are lightweight, we are portable, and sometimes we are even aerodynamic. And for those listening, I'm doing some aerodynamic poses here on the video portion. So there you go, kids and cubs. Please do download us and take us with you, and that way you can take on the day and remain informed. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us, and we are always so grateful for your help. I need lots of help, kids and cubs. You can do that by going on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. You can scan that QR code that's appeared right there. Kids Elaine and Cassie would definitely approve of you doing so and going there and clicking on our buttons. And if you're watching live, remember, if you smash now, you don't have to remember to do it before you leave. So get to smashing. Hey, it's the weekend. Take your time, linger, enjoy it. Give our little buttons a tickle. Like, share, and subscribe. It makes us happy when you do, and it helps us with the algorithm. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, we would be very grateful for your help because we do incur some financial costs to bring the show to you. And we know that the show resonates with you. And perhaps you would like to offer us an enthusiastic expression of encouragement in order to be able to do more of this for you. If that's the case, and if you do have the means, we would be grateful for your support. And you can do that by making a donation to our coffee page. That QR code that has just appeared will bring you there, or you can go to coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, and make a little donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund. Do your bit today to keep your favorite beaver nice and moist as we go into the fall. And we would be very grateful for your support. Thank you so very much. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, you have the super chat feature and some memberships. I just saw that there was some loyalty memberships handed out to give people a little taste, because the first taste is always free. I should not be saying stuff like that on the show. But I can't help myself. I'm cheeky. What can I say? So there you go. Please do support us. But if you cannot, the gifts of your attention and participation are and we definitely want to. So please write to us at truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com to let us know what you think about the show, or if you have some guest suggestions, or even to advertise with us. We have some very competitive rates, particularly if you're a startup home-based business, or if you are a community organization that's looking to publicize your events. We know that you don't necessarily have a lot of money for advertising, and so we have very, very attractive packages that recognize your specific situations. And we would love to help to get the word out, particularly since we have a very engaged audience that is just looking for opportunities to be engaged with the community by supporting your event, or to buy Canadian if you happen to have a product to sell that is of quality and would be of interest to our DAMFAM members. So thank you so much for all of that, kids and cubs. We really do appreciate your help. Now, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is also the email address. You can write us, kids and cubs, if you would like to do the Buy Canadian thing and support us financially, but not support the US CE Tech Bros in the process. So if you make a donation there, it's a bank-to-bank transfer, which is entirely Canadian. And because there's no middleman, we get 100% of your donation, which means it goes further to help us bring you the content that you enjoy. So thank you for all of that help. Because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs, if you are in Newfoundland and Labrador, kids and cubs, please, please, please do make sure that you get ready to vote. Voting day is in 4 days for the provincial election. Very important. So far, things, I believe, are still looking good for the Liberals there, but very little polling, of course, on the rock. So it's more important than ever that you plan your vote, you get out to cast your vote, call some friends, organize a little voting party. Maybe, you go out for ice cream or a meal after you go and vote and hang out together. But make it a social event and have some fun with it. Voting is very, very important. It's never more important. It seems that every election that we have is the most important election ever. The further we go in time. So make sure that you do your civic duty and show up to vote. 4 days, very important. And if you are in the Yukon territory, kids and cubs, make sure that you go vote there. It's November 3rd. And remember that in Yukon, not only will you be voting for your candidates to represent you in the territory, but you also have a question with regards to whether or not you would like to move to ranked ballot voting come the next election. Not a lot of people, it seems, are aware of that particular plebiscite. It is a non-binding plebiscite, so it's not necessarily that even if you vote for it that the government will be forced to bring it in, but if it gets voted for with a significant amount of support, it would be very difficult for the government to say no. I personally support ranked balloting. if we are going to change the system, because I believe it's a manner for us to more fully express our vote. Often with first past the post, sometimes there's a party we would like to vote for, but we end up voting for another one because we feel we need to vote X to block O. With ranked ballots, you don't have to do that. And not only can you, not only do you not have to vote X to block O, you can actually vote for your first choice. You can put your X to block O as your second choice if you wanted to. And but you could also say the party that you do not want at all, if there's any parties, either rank them last or not rank them at all. So you get to fully express your full intention as a voter, rather than just a simple, who am I putting my X, to whom am I giving my X, for purposes maybe then other than what I would want in an ideal world. So that's my personal take on that. I'm not an authority on the subject. I also like ranked ballots because if everybody's trying to compete to be everybody's second choice, it forces candidates and parties to compete for the voters in the middle rather than try to turn out which party is better at turning out the biggest base of its base and campaigning to the extremes rather than to the center. So that's my personal take on it. But yes, that will be on the ballot here in, on the Yukon Territory. So if you're there or if you have friends there, it seems that it hasn't been publicized all that much and that there's a lot of people that are not aware. Please research it because you have the opportunity here to potentially make your voting system better than it is. Not that first past the post hasn't served us rather well so far. I mean, 150 years plus of Canada, and we are one of the premier nations in the world. That did not happen by accident, right? The way that we voted and our voting system did help get us to the point where we are now. Doesn't mean that things can't be improved, but right, we do have a relatively decent system that, for all intents and purposes, has served us relatively well over the past while. So these types of changes are sometimes hard to make because you are moving towards the unknown, but I can definitely see a lot of benefits to moving to either a ranked ballot or a single transferable vote. But that is on the ballot for you in Yukon if you are voting this time around. So please get familiar with the subject. And then vote your conscience, of course, right? Don't let me influence you there, but as to what to pick, but do let me influence you in terms of finding out more about it and making sure that you do cast a vote. Okay? Kits and Cubs, let's see, also, because democracy is something that you do, forevercanadian.ca. Right, go there, find out what's going on there, where you can put your signature. They have 230,000 as of the midway, looking for 300,000. So still some work to do, but it is looking positive that all the signatures will be able to be collected before the deadline, and then we can move on to the next phase, which is to get to that question on a ballot and actually have that vote, and that would a very strong vote in favor of Alberta remaining in Canada would, I don't know, maybe it could affect the longevity of Danielle Smith's political career. You never know. That sure would be nice. But it might be a while yet before that vote happens, so it might be a better idea to try and get Danielle out of that seat faster before she can do more damage. Yee. All right. Also, in the democracy is something that we do section, please remember petition E6679 or E-6679, ourcommons.ca. Please go there to give it a sign, and hopefully you enjoyed our discussion yesterday with Mr. Sanchez, who had sponsored the petition, who had basically spearheaded the petition, I should say, and authorized by MP Karim Bardisi. 33,763 signatures so far, so a certain amount more since we last checked in, but we definitely wanted to increase as much as possible so that we can get the attention of MPs and try to encourage them to bring in such measures to increase the level of political honesty and reduce the use of deliberate misinformation in our politics. Words of wisdom, kids and cubs. Well, hey, it's Friday, right? So if you have a weekend coming up, particularly if you will be observing or celebrating Thanksgiving, may always make sure, if you are cooking, to put in the most important ingredient, which is love. That's my words of wisdom. Sprinkle love liberally on everything. It tastes yummy. All right. All right, kids and cubs. That's the end of the show. It could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, at the count of 3, kids and cubs, may I please ask you to say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, 3. Ah, so delightful. So delightful. And nice and soft today. I like it. You switched it up. And therefore, since you were creative, I need to give you a hint. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs. Thought I've had a little something here for you. Because everything video, I was going to keep talking and hope you can see me. Hoping to have some Canadians who make us proud for you. And even though he still makes us proud, unfortunately, Felix Auger-Aliassime lost his match at the Shanghai Masters 1000, which was really sad because he was favored to win this match and had a clear path to the final laid out for him, but unfortunately did not win his match, and that puts an end to that particular run, unfortunately. Oh, so sad. I just want to see him win a big one sometime soon. But since we were talking about certain things, it is Nobel Week, and there have been some winners announced. And hopefully, kids and cubs, this will cooperate with me, and I will be able to read a few into the record. So, of course, as we mentioned, the Nobel Peace Prize has been offered to Maria Corina Machado for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go to another one. From dictatorship to democracy. So that was from the Nobel Committee on Peace. For literature, the Nobel Prize for Literature was awarded to the Hungarian author Laszlo Krasznahorkai for his compelling and visionary oeuvre that, in the midst of apocalyptic terror, reaffirms the power of art. I saw a tweet from him the other day saying, "Oh, I just got a call and found I was told that I won." Just very simple, not assuming in any way, shape, or form. It was like, wow, how cool is that? What did you do today? Oh, I just picked up the phone, found out I won a Nobel. That's all. Then I made oatmeal. In chemistry, The prize was given to Susumu Kitagawa, Richard Robson, and Omar M. Yagi for the development of metal organic frameworks. And I do not know what that means. So I'm probably going to have to read a little bit about that in a couple of days. Let's see, what else do we have here? The prize for physiology or medicine went to Mary E. Brunko, Fred Ramsdell, and Shimon Sakaguchi for their discoveries concerning peripheral immune tolerance. The one in physics went to John Clark, Michael H. Dvorak, and John M. Martinez for the discovery of macroscopic quantum mechanical tunneling and energy quantization in an electric circuit. And I would be lying to you if I told you that I understood exactly what that meant. And I believe that those are all the ones. There's one more left for the prize for economic sciences that will be announced on the 13th. And I think that might be all of the prizes. So we have one more to wait for. But congratulations to all the winners. And hopefully I will find out more about what it is that you have done to earn those distinctions over the next coming days. All right, kids and cubs, that's so. Citizens of the world who make us proud rather than Canadians who make us proud so far today on this show when we're talking about the Nobels. That's all I got for you. And now, like magic. Oh, sorry. Mr. Grizzly might be doing something on Saturday if it's at an hour that I can join him. Because either we don't have guests that have arrived yet and I'm back from rehearsal by then. I will be joining him. Possibly might possibly do a casual Friday this evening. Not necessarily a bonus beaver, but maybe a casual Friday this evening if I can get enough of the housework over the day to prepare for our guests. That leaves me some time. But check our socials, and if there's anything more today, you will see it there. But if not, then I will see you on Monday. Amour et bisous. And have a wonderful Thanksgiving to everyone who will be observing and celebrating. And like magic, now I'm gone.